乔里，你不要紧张哦，你一紧张我就紧张了。
我不会紧张。
你怀疑了。
Kelly, do not be nervous because once you get nervous, I get nervous too.
对，我很高兴我来到这个布朗来讲演。
I'm very delighted to be here at Brown today to give this talk to this wonderful community.
当然，首先要感谢这个中国联的这个项目，请我来做一个开始。
Of course, first I have to express my gratitude to the Year of China for considering me as a guest lecturer at this wonderful event and to kick off the year.
当然，更高兴主要还是因为布朗大学培养了一个像 Kelly 这么优秀的学生。
And of course, what makes me most proud is that Brown University has brought to me such wonderful assistant like Kelly.
没关系。你只是翻译，you just translate. OK， 因为很少碰到一个我的同事，还有或者我一起工作的艺术界的朋友，他们经常夸奖自己的学校，动不动就情不自禁地说我们学校是什么。
Because throughout these years, I've had a lot of colleagues coming and going, and they've always said so much great things about their own schools.
但看起来这个布朗给 Kelly 有很多很好的那个教育，而且他在跟我的工作的方方面面也证明了布朗确实很优秀。
But it seems like Brown definitely did a very good job because Kelly seems to really sincerely love the school, and it's also because of Brown's education that gave her such good skills.
而且呢，另外还有一个秘密，是因为也不算秘密，就是我还有个女儿在瑞士读3年级的雕塑系。
There's also a secret, which is not really a secret, that I have a daughter who is studying at RISD as a sculpture major.
所以我其实心里面也总是悄悄在等待瑞士的什么时候请我去演讲。
So I've always been secretly hoping and wondering, when is RISD going to invite me for a talk?
所以我女儿已经4年级了，不小心就毕业了，所以我赶快抓着这个机会赶快来。
My daughter, when you is already a senior at RISD, so very soon she's going to graduate.
对，那来了以后，我感到哇，这个 RISD 和这个布朗确实很近，而且看起来还做了我的展览。因为我们有特殊的这么多感情关系，所以我心里面有一点点担心。
Once I've arrived, I noticed how close RISD and Brown are, and now that we have a show here at the Granoff Center, I'm starting to have this little anxiety building up inside.
而且我们这种有一点点特殊的亲密关系呢，使我担心什么呢？我不要用你们太多钱了，但这跟我在别的地方很不一样的心情。
And also part of the anxiety comes from, well, you know, once I've arrived, now that I'm here, I hope I'm not like spending a lot of the school's budget, because it's very different from working with large institutions that have a lot of endowments.
今天我是希望是这样的1个小时左右啊，讲我的一些作品。
So today I hope to spend about an hour to talk about my past works.
但这个作品的今天晚上的主题呢，不是非常的集中。
Okay, of course.
这个主题不是那么的集中，比较分散。
But what I'll be talking about is not very centered on one single subject. It's actually going to be very inclusive.
因为原因是我想做到2面给学生们可以看到，一方面是我在世界上一些比较重要的美术馆我做的东西，还有大家容易记得住的那一些东西；另外一方面，我想给大家看到平时大家比较不注意的一些作品，而且这些作品不一定花很多钱，但是对于我来说又是很重要。
Considering that I'm giving a talk at a school and most of my audience are students, I wanted to show not just my well-known works that they probably have seen elsewhere in other institutions or on the web, but I also wish to talk about some of my lesser-known works that are not exactly famous, but a lot of them didn't actually cost a lot to produce, and I hope that would bring up a new discussion.
所以它更多的是有一点点像朋友之间的，或者一个比较年纪大的艺术家和年轻的艺术家的交流。他的作品的年代材质经常会反反复复，不是按照顺序。
So it feel more like a familiar or friendly talk among companions, and and also we are gonna jump around a little bit in terms of chronology. So just bear with us.
而且不大在意这个怎么做，这个为什么做？因为一般讲一个艺术品很容易要用3个角度来讲，一个是做什么，还有一个是怎么做，还有一个为什么做。但今天我们重要在谈做什么。
And also, usually when we talk about art, we discuss why we do it, how we do it, and what we're doing. But today we're going to focus on what we're doing.
对，那我们就开始。然后我讲完了，希望还有点时间让大家自由提问，可以跟大家说一些比较好玩的事情。
So now we're going to start, and we hope to take questions at the end of the talk and have more time to talk about things that are more fun.
OK， 那开始吧。这是关于一些大家比较容易记住的装置。
We're going to start with some of the installations that are more memorable to most.
这是911以后我在马斯莫卡做的那个装置。
This is an installation titled Inopportune Stage 1 that was presented at the MASMOCA in 2004, and it's inspired by the events after the 9/11.
那这个汽车好像是在高速公路的一个平行的一个状态。
The composition of the cars is more like a car going on high speed on the highway.
下一个。这个在古根海姆那个大厅，所以它像龙卷风是卷上去的。
And when the work traveled to the Guggenheim Retrospective in 2008, due to the space, and now it spirals and tumbles up like a tornado.
所以大家可以看到装置的作品在展厅的时候，它是不断的根据状态发生它的新的意义和造型。
So we can see that an installation work, it can actually be very site-specific in a way because it transforms as we move to different spaces.
下一个，如果在台湾的时候，那个汽车它是炸了一圈，又回到了原来一样。
And when the work traveled to the Taipei Fine Arts Museum in Taiwan in 2009, it formed a circle, starting from the same car, ending with the same car.
下一个，那这是一个关于老虎的作品。
And this is a work about tigers. It's titled Inopportune Stage 2. It's also first presented at MASMOCA in 2004.
对，比较英雄无比的老虎，很多箭被射了很多箭，看不出他是受害者还是加害者。
And an animal so ferocious and so courageous, like a tiger, is now the subject to thousands of arrows, and they squirm in the air, in mid-air, as if they are very painful.
下一个。但这个在这些装置里面，有时候我也探索中国长卷艺术的手段。
But in my presentation of the work, I also employ the technique in a Chinese hand scroll.
今天我们因为是中国项目，最好有时候还提到中国。
Today, since we're doing an event for the Year of China, and I think it's appropriate to bring up China here and there.
因为严格说，中国的长卷的概念，它总是在绘画上，它随着时间这样慢慢换、慢慢看。但我探索如何做成那个装置，是可以这样走过去，然后人在看着这个长卷一样的，可是它是空间的。
And the tradition of a hand scroll viewing is one single person will be scrolling the hand scroll as they move along the drawing or the painting, and they only see a small fragment of it as they go. And while I was designing this work, I was hoping that when people move through the space, they will have the same feeling of a scrolls slowly opening up section by section.
它这个主要是一个最大的区别在于是一个参与的观众的那个参与感是不同的，还有一个是它是在时间里面展演开的作品欣赏。
And for the audience, it's a very different experience because they became part of the work, and at the same time, the work is spatial, but it's also time-based.
以后有机会，我们还可以再多谈一下东方的艺术和西方的艺术一些传统上主要在时间观念、空间观念的一些不同。
In the future, when we have more time, we can continue the discussion on how Western and Eastern art are different in presenting the time and space.
OK， 下一个，这个是在柏林在柏林做的一个作品，后来展览是在比尔堡古根海姆。
The work is titled Head On. It was first presented at the Deutsche Guggenheim in Berlin in 2006, and then but in this photo, the installation is done at the Guggenheim Bilbao in 2009.
这表现99只狼冲着一个看不见的墙撞去。
It depicts 99 wolves running towards an invisible wall and clashing onto the wall.
这个跟当时在柏林会想到这个作品，是因为感到看得见的墙容易拆掉，但看不见的墙其实一直要碰壁。
When the work was first commissioned in Berlin, I felt it was appropriate to have a wall installed in Berlin because sometimes an invisible wall is more difficult to break down than an invisible one.
下一个，所以这个墙撞了这个透明的墙以后，狼又爬起来，又跑回去，又重新开始，反反复复的。
And after the wolves collapse onto the glass, they fall down, but then they struggle to get up again and join the ranks of their comrades and try to run towards the wall again.
所以99只狼看起来也像一只狼，然后这个整个是一个时间的过程。
And even though there are 99 wolves, it seems like there could be just one wolf, and it becomes a time enveloped in space.
OK， 下一个，这是一个船，是底下是陶瓷。
The work is titled Reflection, a gift from Iwaki, and dated 2004, and it's an installation of a wooden boat with a bed of broken porcelain.
下一个，那这个船的作品可以回顾到我80年代就在那个村庄啊，在伊瓦基渔村跟那些渔民共同工作，后来我们成为好朋友，他们在成为我作品的一部分，所以在全世界展览的时候，这些渔民呢都会来帮我做这个船。那么我们在全世界很多美术馆展览的时候，他们都成为作品的一部分。然后这个岁月20年的友谊，它就变成了整个一个时间的作品。
When I first went to Japan in the 80s, I befriended a group of fishermen on the northeast of Japan in this city called Iwaki. That was before I became famous, and they took me in as their brother. And while I did this residency at that little city, we became very, very close friends. And in 2004, I invited them back for a new collaboration where we excavated this boat and then brought it to Washington, D.C. for an exhibition at the Firecrackers. Our friendship has grown so much in the last 20 years. So whenever the boat travels to a new place for an exhibition, I invite these friends from Iwaki to follow the boat and help me install them. So this is a work that doesn't just exist in space; it also exists in time.
OK， 看起来我们说话要快，速度我也快，你也快。OK， 好，下一个，这是在99年的威尼双年展上。
This is 1999 at the Venice Biennale.
这个。
And this is called Rent Collection Courtyard.
有100多个雕塑，现场一些雕塑家们从中国大陆来的，现场做这些雕塑，所以观众在这里看到的不是一个完整的雕塑，是看到正在制作雕塑的过程。
More than 100 sculptures were produced on site by a group of Chinese sculptors. And when the audience enters the space, they're not just looking at the sculptures, but they're also seeing the sculptors making the sculptures.
所以展览的过程中，前面做的雕塑已经在裂了，后面雕塑还在刚开始。
And as the sculptors work on the sculptures, the ones that were already done already started to crack because of the dryness in the space, while they're still applying fresh clay onto the ones that they're working on.
所以从看雕塑成为看做雕塑，然后看做雕塑的主体是人，是艺术家，所以艺术家成为这个作品里面很重要的一个展出的一个角色。
So the exhibition switches the position of going to an exhibition to see sculptures to seeing sculptors making sculptures, and so the sculptors themselves become part of the work.
OK， 下一个，这雕塑家是原作者。
And this, the Rent Collection Courtyard was originally presented in the 60s in China, and this artist working here is one of the original artists from the 60s.
下一个，这是草船借箭。
This is borrowing your enemy's arrows.
对，下一个，这是另外在昆子那个美术馆做的一个作品。
This is another work that was done in 1998 at the Queen's Art Museum, and it's titled Cultural Melting Bath Project for the 20th Century.
那整个装置盖在一个巨大的蚊帐里面。
And the entire installation was covered in a mosquito net.
里面养着鸟，所以看起来像国画一样，很安静。
And there were canaries kept, live canaries kept as part of the exhibition inside the mosquito net. So from outside the mosquito net, it looked almost like a Chinese ink brush painting.
下一个，所以观众可以申请在这里面泡澡，在美术馆内。
So the audience can actually apply to enjoy a communal medicinal bath in the jacuzzi tub as part of the work.
对，所以要诱惑人泡澡，要给人一个药方，说这是药方有多么的好，泡了以后对身体、有皮肤啊、美容啊有多么的健康。
So in order to attract the audience to participate, we have to advertise what kind of Chinese herbs that we have put into the bath and what kind of good effects it will bring you. For example, make you prettier.
但你不可以选择种族人一起泡，所以你就有可能在这么小的泡澡里面跟不同的种族在一起说话聊天。
But obviously, you cannot tell the museum who you wish to enjoy the bath with. It's all by random, and therefore, people of different cultures and different races will very likely be mixed together at the same time.
这是我到美国来的第一个个展。
This was my first solo exhibition in America after I arrived here.
这学生肯定感到说，哇，第一个个展在美国就搞得不错，这么大，
So
花了不少钱。
many students might be thinking, wow, this is your first solo exhibition in the States and it's already this big.
其实刚开始我来了，想买一艘美国的潜艇。
But actually, my first ambition when I arrived was to buy an American submarine.
我总是先给人家说一个很厉害的，让人吓一跳。
What I usually do is I always tell something that's out of reach, outrageous, and then make people very, very surprised.
然后以后我再降下来，他们感到泡澡比潜艇简单啊，便宜多了。
And afterwards, when they show anxiety on their faces, I will approach with something that's milder, and then they'll be like, yes, having a communal bath is a lot easier than getting a submarine.
我也给你们教一些我的经验。
So this is teaching you my strategy of communication.
对，所以以后你们到中国先说一些厉害的，让中国人吓一跳。
So in the future, when you arrive in China, just tell them something that's entirely blows your mind, and then maybe things will go smoother.
照样奥运也一样，奥运我们很多工程师都是从金方到国家最有名的科学家来了，我就问他们一句话说：我们能不能一个晚上就做一个火箭，那个宇宙火箭就在那个体育场的中间，然后到 演出的最后，这个火箭一点咻就发射到太空。他们论证了说还是有可能的。
So the first thing that I did when I was invited to be part of the 2008 Beijing Olympics creative team was I asked all these military authorities and scientists that, do you think it's possible for us to build a space shuttle in the night and then we'll just launch it at the end of the opening ceremony? They examined it and analyzed it and told me, we think it's possible.
当然事实是不可能的。
Of course, everyone knows the truth is it's impossible.
因为他们不愿意让艺术家感到他们一开始就输给艺术家。
They're all very competitive and didn't want to give off the sense that they, as scientists and military authorities, they will lose to an artist.
但其实他们是没有底的。那么几百个国家的领导人在现场，这个火箭要发射歪了怎么办
？But they definitely didn't take everything into consideration because at the opening ceremony there will be thousands of world leaders. What if this rocket just goes the wrong direction?
后来我说大脚印走过来，大家就说简单了。
So afterwards, when I said, well, let's just have 29 footprints walking across the Beijing Central Axis, and they all were so relieved and said, yes, that sounds very simple.
OK， 下一个，这是威尼斯双年展，我第一次参加，95年。
This was the first time I was invited to be at the Venice Biennale in 1995.
那我第一次参加，这样 OK， 所以呢，这个我给他来一个船，从我的故乡来一个。
I brought an old fishing junk from my hometown, Quanzhou in China.
对，下一个，所以就开进威尼斯的那个运河。
The work was titled "Bringing to Venice What Marco Polo Forgot," and then on the opening day, the boat sailed onto the Grand Canal of Venice.
所以大家注意到，我说的为什么我说第一次到威尼斯双年展，后来我参加了6次。那为什么我强调第一次呢？我就是作为一个战略上或者说艺术家的策略上，我都比较善于第一次就给他来一下厉害的，让他们威尼斯双年展100多年突然来一个中国船哗开进来，我是希望大家有一个经验。
The reason I brought up this was my first was because I have been part of Venice Biennale for 6 times total, and but usually wherever I go, the first time I always bring something that's most shocking, and this time I decided to bring a boat from my hometown to a biennale that has 100 years of history.
下一个。对，然后我运来了，但那年是威尼斯双年展建这个双年展100周年纪念，我送给他们100公斤的人参。
Since that year marked the 100th anniversary of Venice Biennale, I gave them 100 kilos of ginseng.
让他们补一补。
So that would be good for them.
下一个，那我把中药做成了5种，对每个人读完了都会感到自己哪一个地方需要的。
I brought 5 different medicinal drinks and sell them through the vending machines. And on the vending machines, there are prescriptions and what kind of symptoms each drink would be targeted or would be a cure for. And so everyone can be reading the prescriptions and understanding what kind of cure they need to heal their bodies.
对，那我是又拿了奖，赚了奖金，又卖这个药。所以赚了不少钱。
So aside from artist fee, and actually won an award, the Benesse Award, which also came with award money, and I also made money from the vending machine.
下一个，那我谈一下关于爆炸的计划。
Now let's talk a little bit about explosions.
下一个，这年轻92年。
I was very young. This was 1992.
在卡塞，德国。
I was in Kassel, in Germany.
所以我全身带着那个心跳、脑波图，旁边都是机器。
I was linked to a cardiograph and a brainwave monitor, and at the same time, the ground was linked to seismograph.
周边埋了很多那个地震仪。
And around the concentric circles, there were 9 sensors buried underground.
请了那个日本和德国的科学家一起做。
And I also invited scientists from Japan and Germany to assist me on this project.
下一个就爆炸，来下一个爆炸。
你没有跟人家说作品叫什么名字？
胎动2，你就讲。
The work was titled Fetus Movement 2.
所以这个炸完了，大家去看看艺术家是不是还在。
So since I was sitting in the middle of these centric circles of explosions, after the explosion, everyone was wondering if I was still alive.
其实没有了，我是设计得很好，那个爆炸都离我的距离很好。
Well, I was kidding. Of course, I didn't wonder. I designed it very well, so I wouldn't die.
下一个，这是心跳和电波和地震的震动。它呈现了一个整体的感觉。
This is a composite print of all the different records from the different monitors of my heartbeats, my brain waves, and seismic waves.
我探索这个人和宇宙和大地之间的关系。
The concept behind the work was to explore the relationship between human and Earth and nature.
下一个，那这个是我在日本的第一次正式的个展。
This was my first official exhibition in Japan.
我就把我的关于在宇宙在柏林墙在国界穿越的大脚印很多想法，做了一些大字报一样的，把它展出来。
I presented a series of gunpowder drawings where I used some kind of like posters to demonstrate my concepts and ideas for all these large-scale explosion projects. And at the time, I was very intrigued by extraterrestrials, and so these are all 4 projects for extraterrestrials, and they vary from having a Bigfoot footprints across national borders. And the Berlin Wall, etc., etc.
有一个背景，因为我从中国去的时候，中国之前呢都是讨论中国和世界的关系。那到了日本，我想，整天说东方和西方，还有这个亚洲和世界，然后特别痛苦，做什么事情都要考虑西方怎么看我们，西方已经做过了没有，什么什么，所以我就干脆想一个宇宙和我们的关系，外星人和我们人类的关系，垮开这个东西方的这个纠缠。
And there is a background to this because when I was in China, all the artists are talking about the relationship between China and the world. And then when I moved to Japan, everyone was talking about the relationship between the East and the West, Asia and the world. So there were so many obstacles that I felt like I was strangled all the time, that I always have to think about, what are the Westerners going to look at us? How are the Chinese going to look at us? So I thought, well, why don't we just leave that all behind and think about what's the relationship between human beings and the universe?
下一个，这个但。刚才那一个照片是经常被介绍，可是人们不注意到，还另外一个展厅是我在那里面睡觉和工作。
So the previous slide showed the exhibition's view that most people see when they go to when they went to the exhibition, and also during my talks. But actually, this is another exhibition room that was open to the public during the exhibition, and this is actually my studio while I was working on the exhibition, and there's a sleeping bag right there, so it shows that I actually sleep there.
就把我的工作室放到美术馆去，因为日本的家太小了。
So I actually took my whole studio to the museum space because when I was living in Japan, my apartment was tiny.
所以大家就看了我那些评论以后，就跟我讨论新的 idea， 我就又增加了很多想法。
So after people see all those gunpowder drawing on screens, they will enter this room and see me working there, and so they will have all these new thoughts that they want to share with me. So I write all of them down, and they inspired me for future projects as well.
下一个，比如说在北极光上面做作品，下面做作品。
And this installation is titled North Pole, and it's an installation demonstrating how I'm going to do project under the aurora.
下一个，比如说如何在那个富士山的那个顶上，利用它的冒气做出一个透明的金字塔，把它撑起来。
And this is a sketch for a transparent pyramid. When I was thinking how to build a transparent pyramid like a tent above the Fuji mountain.
这些纸都是从我家乡带来的，都是擦屁股的牛粪纸。这些纸。
So all of these papers were toilet papers from my hometown that I brought with me to Japan.
对，这个很容易变质，不是很好，大家最好不要用这种纸。
So you can easily see this is not very high quality paper. I strongly dissuade people to use this.
OK， 下一个，这是另外一个作品。
This is another work that I did in Japan titled Immensity
火车
of
开过来
Earth and Heaven.
有时候我们两个交叉声音都没关系。
Okay.
火车，我感到我们这样说话的内容啊会藏起来。火车开过来，这个铁轨在爆炸，还可以从车上看，然后也可以从地上看，这时间概念是不同的。这个作品。
So the explosion happened at the same time as there was a train coming by, and the two tracks are actually parallel to each other. So you will see a train going one way, and then followed by a streak of fire and light.
所以车上的观众和站在地上观众看的时
So
间观，作品的时间感是不同的。
So the audience on the train and the audience next to the explosion project, they have a very different viewing experience in terms of time.
很幼稚的爱因斯坦式的 idea。
It's a very childlike Einsteinian project.
下一个，但艺术家最棒的就是他一直保留他儿童般的幼稚。
But the best thing about an artist is to preserve the childlike essence in you.
Yeah， 这个是那个火车那个开过去，我那个作品的山头上，那个里面我挖了一个洞，然后埋了一块冰，这个冰是有很多微生物的。
So while the train was passing right by this this work, I had this block of frozen seawater that contained all sorts of microorganisms, and I buried it next to the museum.
所以这我的 idea 是一个冷藏生命的观点。
I was thinking about how we can freeze life.
下一个，那这个是利用一个冰箱，也是用那个土，也冷冻了一块冰。
And this is an indoor installation that also shows the same idea, how I use this refrigerator to freeze soil, and then in the middle of the soil is another block of ice.
下一个，这一张草图，还有一个观众是我女儿，当时还不到2岁。
So this shows a gunpowder drawing demonstrating the project, and also there was one audience member, which was my daughter, Wendy. Back then she was not even 2 years old.
明年要毕业了。
And now she's graduating college next year.
那么小就背书包，明年就开始不要背书包了。
She started carrying a book bag so young, but very soon she won't have to.
下一个，这个是那个冰箱的外面。
This is the exterior of the refrigerator.
所以我也给美术馆总是带来麻烦，他们收藏了这个作品，还要收藏那个冰箱和冰箱里面那一块小冰。
So I always create these troubles for museums. They collect my work, and so they have to collect the refrigerator and that little block of ice inside.
下一个，这是万里长城计划。
This is project to extend the Great Wall by 10,000 meters.
下一个，很多观众都来看了。
And there was attended by many audience members.
下一个，我要在长城的终点延伸出去。
The project was to extend the Great Wall from the westernmost section of the Great Wall of China into the Gobi Desert for another 10,000 meters.
下一个，下一个。
And the idea was to have fuses connected to each other, and then it will and it will explode along the silhouette of the Gobi Desert.
对，希望和大地对话，和宇宙对话。
And this is my way of communicating with the universe because allegedly the Great Wall of China is the only man-made structure that can be viewed from the moon.
对，下一个，这是在广岛。
This was at Hiroshima, and this is titled "Where Earth Has Its Black Hole Too."
对，这个点是日本的原来的陆军司令部，原子弹就是朝它扔下去了，所以它一块空地。
This used to be the Japanese army military base, and that was where one of the nuclear bombs was dropped.
下一个，下一个。那后来刚开始那个作品是96年，95年、90年做的，对，这个是2008年做的。我回去得一个广岛和平奖，我就在那个广岛这个做了一个黑色的烟火。
And the previous slides you just saw where the project was done in 1994, and this slide you're seeing right now is actually in 2008 when I was invited back to the same site next to the A-bomb dome for I was receiving an award called the Hiroshima Peace Award, and I did an explosion project titled Black Fireworks for this event.
所以你再倒2张，
So
可以看出年轻一点点，东西很猛，然后这个爆炸呢，每声音很响，要炸得让那个整个城市人都在听到这个爆炸的声音。
So you can see how an artist transformed with age as well. This is when I was younger and I wanted to have a louder bang, and so that the entire city could hear it.
然后现在好像更内敛，它有一个哀悼。
But now I have become a little more
沉默哀悼。
more solemn.
对，下一个。那这是我90年在那个海边刚才说的伊瓦基做的作品。
This was a work, an exhibition I did in 1994 when I was doing the residency at the previously mentioned seaside town, Iwaki.
然后下一个，就是因为我想在海上做一个作品，可是没钱，所以就是四处贴了这个海报，只要你扔$10，你就有权帮我，就是帮助了我买了1米的导火线，这样我在大海可以做一个5公里长的一个地平线。
I wanted to do an explosion project titled the Pan Pacific in the ocean, and but I didn't have enough money to buy the gunpowder fuses for the purpose. So I posted flyers all around the city asking people to donate $10, and for $10 they can help me buy 1 meter's length of gunpowder fuse.
下一个，然后就很多人来，不光给钱，还帮忙干活。
So a lot of people joined forces. They didn't just give me financial help. They also came here to help me put together the project.
然后为了把这个导火线不会在水里面泡水，就装在塑料袋里面。
So in order to waterproof the fuses, we have to put them in.
倒2张。
We have to put them in plastic casings.
OK。好，那就出海了。
And then we went out into the bay.
对。点火，所以炸出来了一条地平线，晚上看到的。
So when the explosion project took place, you can see a line of the horizon.
所以可以看到我们的地球和我们平时没注意到的和宇宙的一个边界。
So we can see this border between Earth and the universe that we very rarely notice.
但很多日本人都互相问：我们干什么要做这种事情，要帮他的忙？
But a lot of Japanese people the local people wondered why should we help an artist do something like this?
那后来我感到他们很多回答，我印象最深刻的是，这是一个男孩子的浪漫啊。
And a lot of them answered themselves with, "Well, this is a romantic dream of a boy."
OK， 下一个，这是我到美国来做的第一件作品。
This was my first work after I came to the States.
我就是到那个 Chinatown 买了很多鞭炮，把它解开了， 跑到拉斯维加斯，然后把那个 Fox 马戏完了以后纸管切掉，然后装了那个炮药，就像恐怖主义在那个饭店悄悄干活一样，然后就申请进了这一个原子弹基地，然后参观快完的时候，一点就炸出一个蘑菇云。
The work was titled Century of Mushroom Cloud Project for the 20th Century. I took firecrackers from New York Chinatown and took them to a hotel in Las Vegas. And I gathered a lot of these tubes from the fax machine, heat-sensitive paper, and then I cut the tubes and put the gunpowder from the firecrackers inside, and it's almost as if I was a terrorist creating a miniature bomb in a hotel room. And then I also applied to go to the Nevada nuclear test site, and then I went there and then exploded this gunpowder inside the tube, and then boom, there was a mushroom cloud.
下一个，对，下一个，这在纽约做的。
I also did it around Manhattan.
对，这是和美国的时代的一个对话。
This is
伟大的美国时代。
This is my conversation with the great American era.
1996年。
That was 1996.
但当时我已经在日本做很大的，你们可以看万里长城啊，什么那个叫做什么，地球也有黑洞啊。但是到美国来，谁给你花钱做这种大事情啊？没关系，没人花钱，咱们就买一串鞭炮，照样可以干。
I was already quite established in Japan by the time, but when I first came to the States, there weren't anyone who was going to give me the budget to create something so large scale, like to extending Great Walls and building black holes. And so I was like, that's fine. I have enough money to buy firecrackers, and we can do things with firecrackers.
对，而且也没有申请准许，跑到哪里砰，有个警察可能要来就走。
I also never applied for any sort of permits. And in my thinking, I was like, well, if police came, I'll just run.
对，所以我希望大家永远都不要把预算当成是一个问题，也不要把自己事情做不成说是政府不同意。
And I hope this will inspire young people here that never think that the problem is that you don't have the money, or the problem is that the authorities won't let me.
因为其实后来这一个作品成了很多美术史的介绍的书，有时候甚至在封面上面，战后的你们可以看在书店卖的战后的艺术史。
And a lot of publications regarding 20th century contemporary art, they like to use this image as the front cover. So maybe you have already seen this already.
才$10。
But if you think about it, the budget was only $10.
太赚了。
So I actually, made a lot from this.
下一个，下一个，这是跟我女儿在试验这个蘑菇烟怎么做才会像。
This once again was with my daughter Wendy, testing how to make it look like a mushroom cloud.
她才5岁，所以她要看得很感动，说像，好玩，肯定作品就是好。
So she's basically the like a lab rat. If she thought this was interesting, and she kept saying, "Yes, this is exactly it," then I would, or like she's very touched by the work, then I would do it.
所以我有 idea 的时候，我都找我女儿问，因为她很小，我问了以后，看她会不会感到好玩。
So back then, when anytime I had any new ideas coming up, I will tell my daughter about what I was thinking, and if she thought it was really fun, if she thought it was interesting, then I would be more confirmed that yes, this is going to be good.
所以后来我就知道了，人家说，你不会说英语，又是在中国长大，又在日本待过，为什么你的作品到德国啊、到美国、法国，人家都很喜欢？因为后来我慢慢懂了，小孩喜欢，肯定哪一个国家的大人也懂得喜欢啊。
Now, oftentimes people wonder, you don't really speak English. And you grew up in China and then went to Japan, but how come that your work is so can resonate with so many people around the world, like whether in Germany, Italy, wherever? And I thought, well, to me, it was just, well, if a child will think this is fun, then I'm sure grown-ups all around the world will think it's fun.
下一个，有时候我是开玩笑的。
Of course, sometimes I'm just kidding.
这是我在纽约做的第一个装置，不是个展，是装
This
置。
was my first installation in New York, but it was not part of it was not a solo exhibition.
墙上是我的草图，
The installation was titled Crab House, and on the wall is my gunpowder drawing.
地上养了很多乌龟，螃蟹。
And the entire floor was covered with beach sand, and we had a lot of crabs from Chinatown live and crawling around.
是因为我去了那个原子弹基地啦，拍的那些照啊，总是要找到一个办法给人家看到啊。
Because I went to all these, random places like the Nevada nuclear test site and the spiral jetty and the double negative, and I took all these wonderful photos and I have to show them somehow.
对啊，所以那个录像带在这个电视机里面放啊。
So I presented the video documentation of all those events through that TV screen.
然后所有的那个照片呢，印成了 postcard。
And I printed all the photos and into postcards.
下一个，所以观众进来了，螃蟹咵就冲过来咬人。
So as soon as visitors walk into the space, all these crabs get really excited and wanted to claw people.
对，所以要小心，要么把那个螃蟹踩死，要么被踩死夹到。
So there's this dilemma, whether you get clawed by a crab or you step on the crab and kill it.
下一个，那这个 postcard 也1张$1也大卖。
So I was at the same time selling these postcards, and I sold them at $1 per piece, and it actually sold out.
下一个，对，过路都看得到，大家就跑进来了。
So since there's this it's a street level space with a glass window facing the street, so a lot of passersby will see it, and then they will feel, oh, what's going on, and then they will come in.
对，也是在 Chinatown。
And this was also next to Chinatown.
下一个 ，OK， 这个是做Issey Miyake的服装。
This was in 1998 when I collaborated with Issey Miyake at the Fondation Cartier in
下一个
Paris.
做成服装。
And they became real clothing.
下一个，还有火药也同时有做一些国家盛典，大型
And
的。
at the same time, I also used gunpowder in national celebratory events.
下一个，同时在纽约9/11以后做的这个彩虹，可以回顾刚开始做那个蘑菇云啊。
And in 2002, after the 9/11 events, I did this transient rainbow, a project for MoMA over the East River, and it also helped me look back onto the time that I did the Century for Mushroom Clouds.
所以当时是没有准许的，偷偷的放炮。这一次不一样了，天上有飞机在巡逻，我的作品的两边都有警察、水上警察的艇。 顶住任何通过的，他们开始还想在水底也派潜水员下去保护。
So this is a very big contrast between what I did for the Century of Mushroom Clouds, where I did not apply for any permits. I just went and did it. And as opposed to this time, I was invited by the MoMA, and they've had all sorts of security trying to make sure that nothing goes wrong. So there was police on the East River making sure no water traffic will come through, and they also had security along the two shores, and also once they talked about the possibility of having submarines in the East River just in case.
当然，这个也是因为9/11以后不可以用火药，也不能放烟火，因为我这个作品提出要建立起一个新生的希望，所以那个政府也给予特别的支持。
This is also due to that post 9/11, no fireworks or pyrotechnic projects could be done around New York. So, but then I tried really hard to persuade the museum and the authorities that this is a project to mark the rebirth of New York. That's how it went through.
这在 Tate。
And this is a project for the Tate Modern. It's titled Mr. Ye Loves Dragon.
OK， 下一个。 这个是黑色的彩虹。
The black rainbow that was presented in Valencia in 2005.
下一个，这是在华沙做的第一次我在社会主义国家前苏社会主义国家做的作品。
This was titled Red Flag. It was done in Warsaw. Was my first presentation at a former Soviet state.
下一个，这开幕之前有一个
So this
红旗。
This was before the exhibition opened, and I had a red flag exploded in front of the museum's facade.
下一个，这是奥运的29个脚印。
And this is the 29 footsteps that walked across the Beijing Central Axis during the Beijing Olympics
15
opening.
公里1分钟
A total
走
of
过来。
15 kilometers, and the 29 footprints have to go through it under 1 minute.
然后有1600个警察和消防队保护这个现场，因为很多文物
members of the
经过。
police and firefighters were securing the whole process.
下一个，来到了体育场。
And this is when the 29th footprint arrived at the bird's nest.
下一个，这个是五环。
The 5 rings of Olympics.
对，这是在天安门广场。
And this is at the Tiananmen Square.
下一个，小时候我很想哪一天在天安门广场做一个没人看的烟火晚会。
When I was little, I thought about presenting a fireworks display at Tiananmen Square for nobody.
后来有时候我在天安门广场在做试验的时候，因为没有任何观众可以靠近，我自己一个人在那边看这个实验，我想到小时候的梦想好像在出现一样。
So when we did a lot of tests in Tiananmen Square prior to the ceremonies, sometimes I was the only audience standing there looking at the test, and that really hit me that almost as if my childhood dream came true.
有时候艺术家能够把一个国家变成作品来做。
Sometimes an artist can turn a whole country into his artwork.
但有时候艺术家一条线条都怎么画也画不好。
Sometimes an artist struggles to get one line straight.
这是真实的。
And that is what's genuine. That is the reality.
下一个。OK， 现在说一下草图，很简单的说一次。
Let's very quickly talk about my gunpowder drawings.
这做草图。
This is the process.
下一个，这是大脚印的草图。
This is the gunpowder drawing I did in 1991 for the Bigfoot's footprint.
下一个。
And this is
下一个。
another lunar eclipse.
这个是我坐在中间。
This is from the Fides movement too, that was done in Germany, where I was connected to all these different monitors.
下一个。那可以看到现在的这些草图是为了外面一个爆炸计划所做的一些草图。
So previously, I did gunpowder drawings almost as a proposal for my outdoor explosion events, and this drawing here marks the start of my gunpowder drawings becoming a record of my explosion projects.
后来我就再把草图又改变成下一个。
And this is for the APAC conference in 2001.
就绘画空间的装置的。
And now I have moved on to a new era where I do gunpowder drawings and make them into an installation.
对。
This was in Hiroshima in 2008, titled A Manned Nature.
下一个，所以人可以在画和水中间走进去。
So there was a reflective pool inside the gallery space, and visitors could walk between the drawing and the reflective pool, and as if they were entering the landscape.
下一个，下一个，这做草图在休斯顿。
This was when we did the gunpowder drawing in Houston, Texas last year.
所以后来我又把这个做草图的过程开放给民众参与。
And now I decided that I should make my gunpowder drawing process public, into an event that people can be free to attend.
然后让那个博客啊、网络啊都可以现场转播。
And we will also have live feeds on the websites, and people will come with all kinds of smartphones and devices, and they could record it and then upload them onto YouTube or even on Twitter.
对，让当代艺术跟各个城市的市民有更多的互动。
So So this brings contemporary art to a new, into a new way of connecting with communities.
下一个，下一个，下一个，这展厅，这是在尼斯，它地下就不是水了，它是那个橄榄油。
So this was the installed gallery in Houston after the drawing was finished. And this is in Nice last year when we had the reflective pool was filled with local olive oil instead of water.
下一个，下一个，那这一个是在墨西哥，人们是在倒那个酒。
And this was in Mexico City last December, where we had all these volunteers and staff pouring mezcal, the Mexican liqueur, into the reflective pool.
用了6吨酒。
9吨。
9吨哦，9吨。
It was a total of 9 tons of mezcal.
下一个，所以整个展厅都是酒味。
So the entire space was filled with the pungent smell of
而且整个教育
mezcal.
层10万个学生，他们是不可以喝酒的，他们都很喜欢进去这里面。
And the thing is, the exhibition was presented at a museum and in a university, and the university campus was actually supposedly alcohol-free. So we brought something that's not allowed onto the campus, and so even just by standing there, people feel intoxicated.
很多学生悄悄地喝酒。
And we've heard from museum staff that there were audience, mostly students, who tried to drink the mezcal from the pond. To try if it was real.
他们假装是要试一下是不是真酒。
But of course they were just putting up a pretense.
下一个 ，OK， 有介绍几个平时大家不大知道的。
So let's talk about something that not
转了半天才转到主
everyone would
题
know.
这有点转太久了吧？
I feel like this has been some ill planning that I spent so much time talking about works that you've already known, and now I'm only going into the subject.
OK， 这是当时我在日本做的一个个展。
So 1984, when I had this solo exhibition called The Wailing Wall.
他们给了$3000作为一个作品，但展厅太大了，所以我就想了一个办法，去那个扔掉汽车的地方，把那个发动机拿出来。
So they gave me about $3,000 as my exhibition budget, and they gave me a gigantic exhibition gallery. But so I thought, well, you know, why maybe I should just go to this junkyard for cars and then just pick up all these unwanted, abandoned engines.
所以买了那些发动机，你再下一个。
So I bought these engines with the $3,000,
给它融化了。
and then I melted it.
下一个，然后再给它做成一块块的那个金属块。
And then I remolded them into these metal blocks.
下一个，好，下一个，做一个墙叫苦墙，观众可以坐在前面看着这个墙。
So it became a wailing wall where people could sit in front of the wall and observe it.
就对着这个墙看想。
So people can meditate in front of the wailing wall.
然后完了以后，OK， 那这个旁边挂着一个整个这个过程印在我女儿的尿布，因为我女儿当时已经不用尿布了，刚不用尿布。
So I printed the process of making the work, the photos, onto the diapers of my daughter, because at that time she didn't need diapers anymore. So I thought this would be a good way to, reuse.
下一个，因为我后来又把这个作品融化了，去做新的汽车，所以我只亏了$1000。
So and afterwards I sold back these metal blocks, and then they were reproduced into new cars. So in the entire process, I only lost about $1,000.
所以它整个这个观念的过程跟那个尿布反复使用很近。
So the concept of reusing materials was reflected not just in the work, but also the same concept come from the diapers.
下一个，这个是我的一些雕塑。
This was my pottery sculptures that I did.
他做是一些陶，还没有烧完，在展厅的时候继续再烧。
And these were basically earthenwares that were not fired, and I just left them in the exhibition space and then fired them as the exhibition was going on.
对，下一个，所以观众买了以后还可以继续在家里面继续烧，这个陶还没做完。
So even when visitors arrive at the exhibition, they will be able to see these earthenwares being fired.
这个作品卖给很多有名的艺术家和评论家，因为很便宜，一个才$1000。
This was sold to or collected by a lot of art critics and other artists because it was not very costly to collect. It was only about $1,000 a piece.
下一个，这是美术馆里面正在展中国的兵马俑展，在日本，所以。
This was at the Setagaya Museum in Tokyo, and at the time the museum was exhibiting the terracotta soldiers from China.
那我就等那个展览开幕剪彩，中国的官员都走了，我从美术馆的外面挖一个地洞通进去。
So I waited until all these Chinese officials who came here for the opening left, and then I dug out a hole outside the museum for people to enter from outside and underground.
这叫盗墓。
And I titled this grave robbing.
下一个，因为所有的都是盗墓来的，包括兵马俑。
Because all these artifacts that we see in museums are all basically robbed from tombs, and so that was my concept, including terracotta soldiers were also raided from the emperor, the first emperor's tomb.
下一个，很年轻当时。
I was very young back then.
这个下一个 ，OK， 这个是那个京都，他们要庆祝那个1200年。我去收服了西安姐妹城市，送给他们1200公斤西贡酒。
So this was in 1995 when Kyoto was celebrating their 1200th anniversary of the city, and I wrote a letter to the modern-day Xi'an, which is their sister city, because the old Kyoto was modeled after the old Xi'an. So, and I had these 1,200 kilos of Xifeng wine, which is local to Xi'an, and brought to Kyoto. So it kind of became a birthday present from the Chinese city.
下一个，然后在他们市政府的广场上给它烧了。
And in front of the city hall, I drew this auspicious symbol, and I poured the Xifeng wine into these, I guess, tubes, and then fired it.
下一个，另外一个是美术馆有一个展览，就是说现在的叫做开放系。Open system 开放性，就是说现在的艺术家呢，都是美术馆系统太好了。现在艺术家不如60年代、70年代这些艺术家这么有革命精神，所以呢，他这个展览要讨论这个问题。结果我就给他做了一个作品，在美术馆的展厅里面养了200只鸟。
So this exhibition was presented during a group show called Open System, where the concept was to criticize modern-day contemporary artists who live a very comfortable life working with a very established museum system, and the artists today are not as great as those from the 60s and 70s. And so I bought 200 birds and then put them in this net inside the museum, and people could pay a very small amount of money and decide whether or not they want to help release a bird to nature.
但是给了$10扔在这个鸟笼里面，那个鸟不一定想出去，因为你扔了$10，你有权利拉开窗子有个小洞，这样一拉给它打开让它走，但是经常鸟不走。
But the thing is, people only have to put in like $10 in the little little box, and then they have the right to pull open the latches to let one bird fly out. But usually, even when you open up the window, they don't really want to leave.
下一张。所以很多鸟，我赚了200只鸟的那个钱，但是只有飞走了100只鸟。
So So I earned the money worth of letting go 200 birds, but only about 100 decided to leave.
展览结束了，美术馆就问我这些鸟还有在这里面怎么办？我说就把整个窗子打开，让鸟全部赶走了，再把玻璃复原起来吧。
So at the end of the exhibition, the museum staff approached me and said, you know, we still have these 100 birds to deal with. What do you think we should do? And then I said, well, you know, let's just open up the window and let them all go. And then we'll seal up the windows so they don't come back.
结果那些鸟飞出去了，它们都整天在这玻璃上面咔咔咔咔要进来，一直叫，100只鸟一直在这个窗子上。
But then, like, even though the 100 birds got outside of the museum, they still wanted to come back, and they kept scratching the glass, and or like trying to bump into the glass. They wanted to come back.
那周边的民众都给美术馆说这太可怜了，你们还是要养这些鸟。后来就美术馆就老拿一些吃的放在这个窗子外面，又放了1、2个月，鸟才慢慢的不来了。
So all the neighbors around the museum complain that this is animal cruelty. That you have to keep the birds. And so the museum decided, well, okay. So they put some bird food around the window, so then the bird will come back for the food. And then they lingered for about another month or two, and finally decided this.
所以我这个作品是想给美术馆说，艺术家跟鸟一样，美术馆有空调、有吃有喝，大家都不想走。
So I was trying to bring the analogy between the artist and the birds. Like everyone felt so comfortable inside the museum where there's AC, there's food, and there's water. So nobody wanted to leave.
下一个 ，OK， 这是我在那个伊斯坦布尔的一个作品，双年展。
This was at the Istanbul Biennial in 1997, where I did a work called The Other Shore.
对，是那个他们说只有$1000请我去做作品。
They said they only had a budget of $1,000.
所以我就在这个亚洲的这边往西边，那个欧洲那边扔这个水漂。
So I was at the channel that separates Istanbul into two halves, and I was skipping stones from the Europe half towards the Asian half, and then I was skip stones again from the Asian side to the European side.
下一张，对，所以再把2个录像带。
And then I filmed this into a video, and then presented the video in at the biennial.
下一个，这个不要说了，太长。下一个 ，OK。 这个要说吗 ？OK， 这是我 copy 了一个 Demania 的作品，为那个巴德那个做的。
This was a project that was done for the curatorial program at the Bard College in New York, and I was copying the work of Walter de Maria, his New York Earth room, and I did a New York earthworm room.
结果里面很多蚯蚓都跑出
There
来
are a
了。
lot of earthworms that came out of the soil.
下一个，这个是我在那个维也纳做的一个作品。
This was at the Kunsthalle in Vienna in 1999.
我在美术馆展厅的地毯底下安了很多人踩了以后会引爆一个那个蘑菇引出来的。
The work was titled "I Am the Y2K Bug," and I put in a lot of these switches underneath the floor of the museum lobby, so as the audience walked through it, they would accidentally touch the buttons, and then a small explosion would happen in the lobby.
下一个，下一个。所以观众如果很多的时候，这个电脑自动就选择观众，有的人踩着不给他爆炸，有的人就。
So there's actually a program that determines when there's a very full lobby, it will randomly choose which buttons would have an answer as with a explosion.
下一个 ，OK， 这我请一个城市的在荷兰一起那些喜欢画画的人，突然到一个现代艺术的展览的现场，几百个人在那边写生风景。
This was at the Sonsbeek in the Netherlands. I invited a group of art lovers who love to paint and draw, and this is titled Painter Ask Picturesque. And I invited them to paint their city.
下一个，对，这是我在意大利的一个展览，我专门做了一个烟火晚会，是给那一个坟墓的人做的，10万个是在这边的坟墓的。
This was an explosion project titled Ethereal Flowers, done at the city of Trento in northern Italy, where the fireworks were done for this, the dead in the cemetery.
下一个，这是在那个爱丁堡一个作品。这个作品呢，我是做了一些芭蕉林。
This was an installation at the Fruit Market Gallery in Edinburgh. The show was titled Light Beneath the Shadow, and the work is titled Plantain Grove, where I grew a bunch of plantains inside the museum's gallery space.
所以我在树叶上都写了一些鬼的故事。
On each plantain leaf, I wrote a very short excerpt from a famous ghost story.
有时候只是写着说，哦，你后面有人。
Sometimes the only thing I wrote on the leaf was, "There's someone behind you."
下一个，然后我再把这个美术馆的那个监控系统放在另外一个展厅，这样可以看到半夜这个展厅里面都有什么东西。
And I also recorded footages from the closed-circuit television during the time that the museum is not open to the public at night, and then I showed it in a separate room the day after. And so the audience can help us examine if any sort of supernatural event was going on.
那我的作品一直经常追求看不见的世界这一个主题。
My work often centers around the subject of an unseen world.
但是经常不是那么的效果。
But it doesn't always have the best effect.
有时候这一个世界确实不好表现。
Because the unseen world is indeed not very easy to present.
对，下一个，这是一个舞台在罗马古道旁边。
This is an empty stage set up next to an ancient Roman track in Tuscany.
所以这个舞台到晚上自己亮起来，但永远没有人在演出。
So that the stage will light up at night by itself, but there's never any performance going on.
对，下一个，这是一个小作品，最近做的。
This is a very small work that was done fairly recently in 2009, part of a group show in Cordoba, Spain.
他们说连请我去的飞机票都买不起，我说那你就干脆自己花钱做几只乌龟吧，养只。
The curator told me that they don't even have the budget to fly me to the city to actually see the space. So I was like, well, why don't you just, spend that money on a couple of tortoises?
所以我让他们做了2个，一个你给下一张，对，一张乌龟上面种花，一张养着一棵橄榄树。
So I had 2 tortoises, and one of them is carrying a little patch of flowers and grass, and the other was carrying a tiny olive tree.
叫移动庭园。
And it was titled a mobile garden.
要是他们有钱买200只就不得了，整个庭园都在移动。
Of course, if they had a budget to buy 200 of them, we'll have a real moving garden.
下一个，但是这一个橄榄树的乌龟一直吃掉那一个花的乌龟的植物。
But the thing is that the tortoise who was carrying the olive tree kept eating the grass that's on top of the other tortoise. So by the end of the exhibition, we have a bald garden and a little tree.
下一个，然后这一个是菲尔道菲亚，对吧？这个我不说，你自己说好不好？你要说的漏了一点点重要的，我再补充，但你很简要的说，这样我们才可以给一点时间跟人家说话。
Cai has given me the liberty of telling you myself. So
因为
to speak
Kelly 也是这个项目的一个
as I was one of the co-managers of this project that was presented in Philadelphia in 2009. It was a project collaborating between 2 institutions, the Philadelphia Museum of Art and the Fabric Workshop and Museum. It was started because the 2 directors of the institutions, the late director of the PMA, Anne Darnancourt, and the director of the Fabric Workshop and Museum, Kippy. They were very good friends for 40 years, and they've always wanted to do a joint exhibition with Cai, but he was too busy with the Olympics at the time. So he said, well, why don't we wait until after? But then when the after time came, Anne Darnancourt passed away very suddenly. So Cai thought, well, you know, then let's make this exhibition like a commemoration of your friendship. And so he designed this explosion project that was as a gift to the city, titled Fallen Blossom. So basically, it's a flower that was blooming at dusk and on a very, very cold day in December. And we had a very good crowd, and they all witnessed how a flower bloomed and then slowly disappeared. And at the same time, at the fabric workshop side of the exhibition, Cai invited a group of Aboriginal weavers from rural China and they listened to a recording of Kippy retelling the story of her and Anne, and without any sort of, you know, image references, they were to create their own interpretation of their friendship through tapestry, and they were weaving it on site during the entire exhibition. So audience was invited to ask them questions through interpreters and ask them what they're doing, and at the same time we could listen to the recording of the story inside the space. And so this is the backside of the tapestries. That was after they finished, they would hang them up so people can see what they have done previously. But apparently, we thought they were Aboriginal and rural, and therefore they wouldn't be exposed to Western culture as much. But apparently, they have very good access to internet and came with cell phones that are smarter than mine, and so they actually Googled these images, but they had a lot of their own additions to it, like how they imagined things were going. Like, for example, they would show like pandas and some like tapestries, whereas the two directors have never been to China. And then Cai himself did his interpretation of the story between Anne and Kippy in the form of gunpowder drawing, but this time it's not on paper, it's on silk, since it's fabric workshop, and they deal with a lot of textiles and fibers, so it was only appropriate to use a different material. And the idea was to have the gunpowder drawing exploded in this sort of like a sink, but it's really a man-made river, and while it's dry in front of a live audience. And afterwards we let in water and it will be running water like a real river. So during the 3 months of the exhibition, the charred drawing will continually be washed in the water. So it's a comparison between what the weavers was doing, which is accumulating memory, and on Cai's side, he was showing that how memory was made, and then as you age, it slowly fade away. And this was at the opening Cai with, this is Kippy, and this is Anne Darnancourt's husband, Joe Rischel. This is the when the audience can see how the drawing was flowing in the water.
那现在最后介绍一个我们刚做完的，也是 Kelly 做这个项目经理的。
And so now I would like to talk about the exhibition that Kelly just managed and just opened in Ukraine last month.
对，也是快。这个是那个矿井底下的那个运矿
for
车。
the exhibition, we went on a site visit to see mines in this industrial region of the country.
对，那这是我们要下井。
This was us going down the mine.
1000多米深。
About 1,000 meters below
Yeah.
ground, which is around 3,000 feet below
Yeah.
ground.
下一个。
These are the miners getting off work, and then they were sketched by local artists who were trained in the socialist realism style, and they were just freshly out of the mine after work. And then afterwards, these local artists helped us blow up their small portraits into 3 meters by 2 meters large portraits. And then we made them into stencils with the help of local volunteers. And then Cai applied gunpowder to that. And as he was doing that, he tried to preserve each artist their own personal style and rendering. And then we exploded each portrait on canvases, which is also different from what Cai usually does, which is on paper. And this was, again, also in front of a live audience where people could come and watch how an artist was like at work. And these are the portraits that came from the event. There was a total of 27 portraits. 9 were of salt miners and 18 were of coal miners. And actually just 2 weeks before we arrived to make the drawings last month, there was a tragic accident that happened not that too far away from the city that we were working in the mines. And the authorities weren't really doing anything to change the situation of the miners, and it's a contrast between how miners used to be of a higher social level status and during this Soviet era, and how they are sort of marginalized in the post-Soviet era. And afterwards, the drawings were presented on a heap of salt and a heap of coal, where audience will follow this trail along the different drawings. And then these drawings were hoisted on top of this support system that's often seen in the Soviet times, where people had propaganda parades, and they would have all these portraits, large portraits of Soviet leaders. But now things have changed. It's the miners that's on these hoisted structures, and the exhibition space was lit with mining lamps. And we also had an installation titled Nursery Rhymes, where we had 9 used mining cars, and we put up these canopies on top to project different Soviet-era films that were cut and pasted together. They will be of different subjects. Each card would have a projection of one theme, and all these Soviet-era coveted objects that correspond to the film. So it will be some of them will be about sports, some of them will be about the sweet life under the Soviet reign, or like music, or all sorts of more religion, for example. And at the same time, the audience could also hear this bandura player playing these very nostalgic sounding, melancholic sounding Cossacks folk songs. And this was us coming out of the coal mine after 3 hours underneath the ground.
OK， 那我们讲演的这些作品介绍就结束，请大家说说话。Kelly 辛苦了。
So this is the end of our part. Now feel free to ask questions.
对。你问人家有没有问题？
我问了。So does anyone have questions?
Yeah, please.
Sorry， 你好，我是瑞奇的学生。我的问题是因为我看过您的一个项目叫做农民科学家。
农民达芬奇。
对，农民达芬奇，就是在这个过程中，我发现您非常注重互动。我认为农民达芬奇就是您作为一个艺术家和最底层劳苦大众的一种互动。 但是就是我有一个想法，就是其实农民阶级、工人阶级这些，他们和生活发生最密切关系的人，其实是最有创造力的一群人。但是他们的创造力被冗繁的日常工作给埋没了。所以您的项目把他们的创造力挖掘出来，我觉得这项目特别好。所以我就想问问您，如何能让我们继续发掘这些创造力，并且把他们拥有的这些创造力为我们所用，做出更好的作品。
Would you like to translate yourself, or would you like me to translate for you? So he's a student from RISD, and he went to see Tai's show last year in Shanghai, titled Peasant Da Vinci's, where Tai showed a collection of objects that were invented by these group of supposedly farmers in China, but they have since abandoned their day job and started working on these inventions like submarines, robots, and what is your name? Sorry. Jude. So Mr. Zhu here, he went to see the show and felt that this exhibition showed that there's like other than hard labor, the sort of lower middle class in China also have these hidden talents and hidden creativity, which he felt that Tai did a very good job bringing that out to show everyone. And he was wondering how we could continue to discover and preserve this kind of very raw creativity.
这个题目很大，所以我只能轻轻松松的回答你几句啊。
This is a very large subject, so I will answer it something that's a little bit more lighthearted.
首先，中国是一个农业大国啊。
First of all, China is a country with thousands years of history, and it was established on agriculture.
所以我是农民的儿子。
So I myself am a son of a farmer.
而且大家看我干活这么多，肯定我也是个优秀的劳动模范，也是个农民了。
So now that you've seen that I have such a huge collection of works, you can see that I'm definitely a laborer myself as well.
对，但是因为在这个世博会时候，我决定不跟政府合作做那个世博会，而是自己做另外一个角度。因为中国以前可以一个国家的集体力量可以做奥运会，但是看不到一个个人的力量在哪里。所以通过一个个农民的这种创意啊，和他们自己的个性化解放，这一种自由的性格可以展现，这也是这个民族的一个新的可能。
So the exhibition was presented during the same time of the World Expo in Shanghai, but was separate from the Expo. And through the Expo and also the Beijing Olympics, that people could already see the power of China collectively. But then but what about individuality? It was something that's buried under this grand collectivity. So so my purpose of that exhibition was to bring out these individual creativity.
所以那个时候我在那个展览里面提了3句话，一个是针对世博会，是说城市让生活更美好，或给它改造成为农民让城市更美好。
And so in reflection to the slogan of the Shanghai Expo, it was "Better City, Better Life." I wanted to say, "Peasant makes a better city, better life."
然后另外一个是，当时我做了2句话是重要不在飞起来，还有一句话是不知如何降下。
I also created 2 other slogans. One was what's important was not whether you can fly, and the other was never learn how to land.
现在都变成了对中国现在的经济状况和社会的这种物质追求的心理状况有一个很好的反照。
And these have become very appropriate in a way because it's also reflective of the current state of China in terms of the economy and technology.
所以刚才我回答你，看起来没回答你，其实有一点是回答了你，就是艺术家就是农民，就是要干活。
So it may seem like I didn't really answer your question, but what I'm trying to say is that artists are like peasants. We just have to work.
对，而且农民这一个探索的那个天性，包含了我们艺术的最早的童年，和科学家的童年天性。
So and also the peasants also showed us what is hidden in the human nature, and that's something that's universal.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you talk about perhaps you and your sketchbook and its relationship between your bigger pieces like your performance pieces, your sculptures, or even your larger drawings?
想请你谈一谈它，就是你的作品里面有很多这些，比方说从一个很小的自己的草稿开始，然后怎么样变成一个这个大的草图啦，或者是装置啊，或者是表演啊这些。
这个就是其实就是这样，就是小的 idea， 就像在 A4 的纸上，呱呱呱呱就画一个，然后就跟人家 presentation 说这个 idea 是这样，看场地，先看场地，然后想了 idea， 那给人家说这样好不好？人家说哇不错不错，然后就开始了，然后就慢慢做大的，做成立体的。
So it's pretty similar to any other projects or anything that anyone does. It always starts from a very small, hand sketch. And usually what happens is institutions would invite me to see their space. And then after seeing the space and learning more about their culture, I would come up with a proposal which will be drafted out on letter-sized paper, and then I will tell them, well, this is what I think. What do you think? And if they like it, we will do it. And obviously, they also have to be able to do it.
但有时候他们太喜欢我就小心了，也许这个没意思。
But sometimes I become extra cautious when they immediately like an idea.
但有时候我是很爱这个，但我画好几种。
And sometimes I like the idea very, very much. I will come up with different sorts of variations.
其实我这个草图的重要不是在于给人家说我想做什么，是跟人家在讨论中整理我到底要什么。
So a lot of times when I present these like small sketches to present my ideas, it's not just to show people what I was thinking. It was also helping me figure out what I wanted to do.
而且在这个地方应该做什么。
And also trying to figure out at this very special, specific place, what should I be doing?
Okay. Yeah.
Do you have any formal training in pyrotechnics, or have you just been like a giant kid experimenting and playing? And do you have any memorable stories of surprise during these endeavors?
还想知道说你有没有？想知道你有没有任何的这个正式的火药或者是烟火方面的训练，还是说你就只是一个大孩子在随便的乱玩、乱实验？
对，我小时候其实是特别怕放鞭炮的。
Actually, when I was little, I was very afraid of firecrackers.
那个用火药做作品，其实是我对于我个人的一个反叛，因为我个人是比较胆小和谨慎，有点继承我父亲。我父亲会画国画和写书法，就很谨慎。做人呐，很谨慎，胆小是一个好事，认真。但是做艺术啊，这样不行，所以我就找一个东西对我个人有破坏。
I was trying to strike a balance between myself and because I'm actually a very timid and overly rational person, and it also came from my father's influence because he was a very serious person and very conservative, which is okay if you're just a person, but then if you wanted to be an artist and you are very serious and conservative, that's not a very good thing.
所以对艺术家一个很重要，就是要一直给自己处在一种不安的状态，自己跟作品的关系，自己跟自己的 这个艺术的人生的关系是一种不安和紧张的状态，而不是没问题，艺术就是我口袋里面的 safe phone， 这就完蛋了。
So it is very crucial that I always maintain this this anxiety, this sense of risk between myself and my artwork. Because if my artwork is just like my cell phone in my pocket, and I'm very relaxed about it, that's where it becomes very dangerous.
所以不管是装置还是这个绘画，或者是这个爆炸计划，我都让我的艺术有一点点偶然性和难以控制性。像我跟很多民众的合作，你是很难去控制的。
So I always try to keep this uncontrollable quality in my art. For example, when I'm working with volunteers, it's a crowd of people and everyone's different. It's really hard to control what is going to happen.
或者跟政府合作也
And
一样。
sometimes when I'm working with governments, that's the same. It's very hard to foresee what they're going to say yes, what they're going to
那
say
个
no to.
最大的不安是，也许这个作品轰轰烈烈的做好了，可是它根本就不是作品，成不了艺术啊！你只是做了一个摆摆，做了一个秀而已。
And sometimes you spend so much energy and so much labor into one work, but in the end, even though it looks so glamorous, it's not really art. It becomes just a simple spectacle.
所以就是在这个不安，反倒诱惑你去做那个事情，而不是你不知道它是危险的去做，是因为它这个不安和危险诱惑你去做。
So it's what is seductive in art is that there's always this unsettling, the sense of unsettlement that makes you really want to do it. Otherwise, there's no charm in the work.
那换一个女的吧。
Can we have some girls asking questions? Because we've had 3 boys
哦，那
already.
边有一个女的是吧？
Yes. Was there a hand raised in the back?
Hi.
Okay.
So, if I can imagine, the great works you have shown, but there must be pieces that didn't quite work out right. So, how do you react to such works?
他说有一些作品就是让人觉得很难一下子有。
就是不成功的作品，你认为很失败，可能观众也觉得很失败的作品。那你怎么对待这样的一种结果
OK， 他英语大家都听到了嘛，是吧？
是的。
OK， 基本上我自己个人没有把作品分成成功的和失败的。
Actually, for myself, there's very rarely any work that I consider completely unsuccessful.
但因为很多时候都是人生和艺术的一个东西，它是一个时间里面的，它不是一个事情就结束的。也做成了一个事情，也不要把它看得太了不起；没做成也不要太失望。也许下一次不小心就做得很好了。
And a lot of works, they shouldn't be viewed as a standalone incident. Sometimes they can be viewed in time and they become something else. So it's really hard. So it's never a good thing to call something failed at a very early stage.
但是有一些时候，我作品又太依赖那个时间点，那么它就是做不成了。这一个事情以后等于很难做了。比方说，2000年那个千禧年的瞬间，我是想请地球把灯都关暗了，来庆祝这个千禧年，给联合国。从93年他们就找我做 idea， 我就给了。但这个事情其实是做不到，也没做成。但是总不能我活到下个1000年再做。
So, but of course, I sometimes become too reliant on this, the timeliness of my work. For example, in 1993, the United Nations invited me to do a project for the upcoming millennium, the new millennium. And I thought, well, I would really like to have the entire world to turn off the light as we go from the old millennium to the new. but obviously that was never realized, and it's not realistic to wait for the next millennium to come to present this.
对，而且还有一个作品，有时候我想起来也挺难过的。有时候就是像我们在奥运的开幕式，我们本来想整个那个地面的 LED 出现一个毕加索的《格尼卡》油画，然后很多像农民一样上去播种一样，把火药撒在格尼卡的这个线条上面，然后灯一关，就是变成一幅格尼卡的火药的撒出来的沙画，然后火一点，唰就炸起来，格尼卡就炸起来了。对，然后炸完了以后呢，另外一大堆孩子进来了，从北京的很多大人小孩进来了，普通的民众，他们不是演员？还是你先讲一段，要不大家等半天。
So there was another project that I would really like to realize, but couldn't. Was for the Beijing Olympics opening, where I wanted to have the LED screen that was on the ground of the bird's nest, where it will project Picasso's masterpiece, the Guernica, and we'll have all these people applying gunpowder according to the silhouettes and lines inside the Guernica, and then we'll turn off the lights on the LED screen, and then so it would just be vignettes of Guernica in almost like a sand painting, since gunpowder is powder, and then we'll ignite the drawing, so then we'll have this gunpowder drawing of Guernica.
所以这个 LED 这个影像，我们大家很多是读这个多媒体的，它是一个互动的，所以这个影像上面就变成一个火药的一个爆炸。那火一点呢，影像的爆炸和真实的火的爆炸一体，然后完了以后就变成一幅这个屏幕上变成是一个火药画。那很多北京的民众进来呢，他们一人拿着一个毛巾，把这个屏幕上的火药画擦干净了。他们所擦过去的地方，草也开了，影像草也出来了，花也开了。
So a lot of the members on the creative team deal with multimedia, and they wanted the LED screen to also be interactive. So they were thinking that after the drawing was ignited onto the screen, at the same time during the ignition there will also be a video ignition that was presented on the LED screen at the same time. And then afterwards, we'll invite a group of commoners. They're not actors hired for the event, and like grown-ups and youngsters. They will all have a little towel, and they will approach the LED screen where there's already the charred marks of the drawing, and they will slowly wipe away the charred mark that's on the LED screen. And as they touch the screen and wipe away the marks, flowers will bloom from where they touched.
但这个事情后来没做成，因为很担心这中国人的奥运会干什么？说欧洲的这一个故事啊。
But then the reason it was objected was because we felt that, well, people are going to say, this is an event in China. Why do we have to bring in something that's from Europe?
但其实这个作品对我来说是很有意思的，它有2个很有意思的。第一个是这一个多媒体的大型的这个当代艺术的表演，几十亿人现场看到，这是可以互动和现场行为和装置和影像艺术的表演。
Though there were 2 parts that are very attractive to me in terms of this project, and the one part was that this is a multimedia and interactive work, which is something that will be presented in front of billions of people, and at the same time, a very large group of people get to participate.
第2个是很重要的，发明了火药的这个民族，在宣传自己的文明的伟大的那一个时候，他是做了自己的贡献，给人类带来的不幸。这一个是非常好的胸怀，而且是很正确的一种态度。
And as the nation that invented gunpowder, it becomes a very appropriate moment to reflect back and think about it was because of this invention that brought forth a lot of unfortunate events in the rest of the world. And it became especially appropriate because the Olympics opening was supposed to be the time to emphasize the grand contributions of one country to the rest of the world.
所以对于我来说，艺术它永远都是一个像一个钟摆，也像一个时空隧道。
So for me, art is always like my approach to art is always like a pendulum, and I always feel like art presents me a tunnel in time.
有时候社会主题，还有国家力量，还有等等那个偏多了，我就摇到个人主义，还有形式、材料、美学。
So when I've done a lot of works that's more related to the society, to the greatness of a country, I will swim back and reconsider things that are more minuscule in a way. It's more about individuality.
但是有时候这个自己的个人探索美学材料风格的研究多了，又会提醒自己。可是你作为人类的责任呢？你想对社会要说的一些对社会议題的看法呢？又是自己又这样，所以我就顺着这个钟摆，一会儿这边，一会儿那边。
So after I have explored a lot of themes with the forms and composition and these sort of aesthetics issues, then I will start to question. Well, then, as an artist, what have you done for the world? How does this relate to the rest of the humankind?
那有时候我这个艺术像我的时空隧道，这徘徊在东方和西方，看得见的、看不见的世界，传统和当代。
And not just and I don't just travel in time through art. I also consider the issues between the East and the West, the seen and unseen worlds.
当代和传统。
And traditional and contemporary.
对，我有时候徘徊在体制内，有时候在体制外。
And sometimes I am performing inside the regulations, and sometimes I'm thinking outside of the box.
但其基本我是认为艺术它是重要的，对我来说，但它没有那么的伟大。
But of course, art is always very something that's very dear to my heart, and it's very important. But at the same time, it's not as grandiose as it seems.
它是脆弱的。
It's very fragile.
艺术是脆弱的，经常是无助的。
And it's usually helpless.
但它是真实的。
But it's real.
所以这个不安使你会一直想去追求更有力量、更有意义。
So the feeling of unsettlement is where that gives you more courage and power to pursue it further. Do we have time for more questions, or are we?
Thank you.
Thank you.